VIBErations Podcast, Part 5, Denquar. Hi, I'm Gary Brightman and this is my weekly podcast called VIBErations. Established in 2018, Vibe is a book and music shop situated on Lantau Island in Hong Kong. In this week's show, the logo competition is finished. What's been going on over the last week? Books and music, an interview with Denquar, and finally a shout out to a local Lantau business. Or is it? The competition to design a logo for VIBErations podcast based on our existing Vibe logo is now closed. With just 2 entrants and one of those being me, I've chosen my design as the winner. Yay! Some of you may be thinking that I'm beginning to sound more like Trump every week, and to you I'd say, bite my Twitter. So what's been happening at the shop? Last week was National Day on the 1st of October and Mid-Autumn Day on the 2nd. Vibe was open both days. In fact, we've been open every single day this year. The 2nd was particularly busy with all ferries to Mui Wo full in the morning and extras being laid on. So we sold a couple more books, vinyl and CDs than usual. I met with local historian and current affairs commentator Gordon Poon on Saturday after he'd contacted me about selling the first volume of his Hong Kong history book in the shop. It would be the first Chinese language book concession, and so we're excited to sell it. We'll also offer him a platform to do a talk on the book in November. This week's shout out to a local Lantau business goes to non-Lantau based Blacksmith Books. We're big fans of Pete Spurrier's business, which has been running since 2003. Blacksmith Books focuses on locally relevant non-fiction, biography, business, culture, current affairs, food, photography and travel. And through distributors in Asia, North America, Australia and the UK, they present the works of our local and expat authors to a worldwide readership. In fact, we've just taken delivery of another 5 of their titles, and through our relationship can obviously order any of the others. So we have The Tiger Hunters of Tai-O by John Secchi, which is always a good seller on Lantau. Hong Kong Volunteers in Battle, December 1941 by Evan Stewart. The Tale of Run Run Rat by Sarah Brennan, and illustrated by SCMP cartoonist Harry Harrison, part of a series of 12 Chinese calendar tales. The Hong Kong Letters by Jill Shaddick, which is her memoirs from Hong Kong. And finally, The Man Who Owned All the Opium in Hong Kong by Jonathan Chamberlain. You can find out more on www.blacksmithbooks.com. And now on to music. In this week's feature, we interview Denquar. So this is how things happen in Hong Kong. And as I always say, there is only 1 degree of separation here. After interviewing Tom Midgley at Cafe Paradiso last week, he asked if I knew Denquar. I didn't, but he went on to explain that she was Edwina's daughter, who I did know from coming to Vibe. He suggested I ask her to sing at Vibe. A few WhatsApps later, we meet, and here we are. Denquar was born in Hong Kong to a Thai father and British mother. Having a musician as a father, music was introduced to her at a very early age and is still a huge part of her identity. She spent a few early years in Phuket with her mother and finally moved back to Hong Kong for a better life. Denquar, which in Thai means cucumber, has always been her nickname. She still speaks a bit of Cantonese and Thai. I'm sitting here at Vibe just waiting for Denquar to come. I'm a bit nervous because, well, she's a beautiful woman.
Hi. Good Gary, what are you wearing?
Well, I thought you'd be impressed.
Yeah, it's all very good while wearing a suit, but it doesn't go very well with flip-flops, Gary.
Oh, okay. All right.
That pirate's hat doesn't really do much of the job. Should I go home and put a mermaid's outfit on?
Denquar, welcome to Vibe.
Yay! Thanks for having me.
Okay, so when we first met, you told me that coming back to Lantau felt like coming home. Why is that?
Yeah. Well, I was born in Hong Kong. I spent the first 4 years of my life in Thailand, but since then, since moving back at a very young age, I've spent my whole life here. My childhood, from what I can remember, my teenage years, and early adult years. So this is basically my turf. I know every street, nook and cranny, path, tree, rock, grain of sand on Lantau. That's not even an exaggeration. So
That's brilliant, and it's so cool to have somebody, a jazz singer that is from Lantau. And what were you doing prior to coming back to Lantau?
So I'm basically living in London, but I have worked in different parts of Asia over the past, 5 years of my career. Now, currently I'm based in London, but I've been spending most of this year in Bristol with my mum and my granddad. And I had to renew my Hong Kong ID, to be honest, because, when you have a permanent resident card, you have to use it every 3 years. But to be honest, I just kind of really needed a break, and so there was an opportunity to come back, and I've now been back for about 3 weeks, but I had to quarantine for the first 14 days, didn't I? So yeah. I feel like I've just kind of been let out of the box, and now it's just time to kind of explore and just really enjoy being back on Lantau, to be honest, back to my roots. Yeah.
So how long do you think you're going to spend here in Lantau?
Well, I've extended my trip for a few more weeks. It's quite a confusing time because of COVID and everything. So I am due to fly back to the UK, but depending on how things go, and Hong Kong can sometimes be full of opportunities, and just seeing where the work is for me, to be honest. Yeah. Which at the moment, or this year, hasn't been very much. But I'm also doing some studying. I'm studying a master's degree in songwriting in London. So I do have that to go back for as well. It's all a bit of a mixed juggle of decisions at the moment. But I could be here for 2 weeks. I could be here for 3 months. So, yeah.
Okay. And so when I heard about you from Tom, I did a little bit of research. And yeah, exactly. Yes. I found you on YouTube, and cool. You'd done a song called Ode to Quarantine.
Slowly eyes die down, sinking deep in clouds, never wasted by the days, ever since I went away, still golden as the sun, as old as I am young. Time rolls by like waves, sinking deep in space, but momentary glow is exactly how I know it. Frozen by the sounds, all those familiar sounds of Lantau. Oh, oh my, without your warming breeze. Oh, a million miles, but yet your soul's in me. The moon still keeps me smiling. This very little island, all to quarantine. Though I'll stay free, washed up by the sea is where I'll be. Washed up by the sea is where I'll be.
Yeah.
What made you write this song?
Well, I just kind of gotten off the plane from the UK, and I had to spend a night at the Dorset, as per the government testing kind of holding place. And I'm very lucky that my friends Julia and Matthew have let me stay at their place in Puyo. And I guess I got to their place, and I was very jet lagged, but it just felt so nice to be back on Lantau. You can just feel you can feel something in the air or sonically or somewhere in the atmosphere that I could close my eyes and still know I'm on Lantau. And so I was feeling very jet lagged at the time, and kind of a bit tired, a bit wobbly, very hungry, but just looking out onto the mountains and the kind of sea, and I kind of just felt so at home and so relaxed, and so I wrote this song just with ease. I wrote it in like 10 minutes.
Wow.
And it's just a short little song, and I stuck it up on YouTube, and the Works contacted me and said, oh, this is a lovely song, would you like to come back and be on our show again? So it's been a great opportunity, really.
Yeah,
that's what the song's about.
And of course, the other song that you sang on The Works was Praying on Science, which was recorded with the Scottish Orchestra. How did that come about?
So, gosh, how much time have you got?
Give us a short edited version.
Oh gosh, all right. So that song has been a big part of my journey. It is a pop song, kind of a pop ballad, which I would say isn't necessarily the style I feel my artistic identity is entirely. But let's just say I started writing the song a long time ago, but I'd finished the kind of vocal lyrics and arrangement about this time last year, a little bit more, sorry. And I wrote the song on vocals and piano, and I thought it'd be really lovely to get a really nice string arrangement. So I contacted a guy called Steve Turner, just on the net, and he was on tour with JLS at the time.
Okay.
And we kind of exchanged collaboration just on email. And so let's just fast forward. I'd got this really beautiful ballad with a lovely, majestic string arrangement to it. And, like with music production, even software strings can sound really, really good. But I was at a time of my life that was a bit more established, and I had a little bit more money in the bank, nothing major, but I kind of thought, hey, how much would it be to have a string orchestra play on my track? And we explored different options. There's so many different ways you can do it. There's, it's not black and white, these things. There's so many different ways. And there was a small window of an opportunity where the Scottish Session Orchestra, via a company called Clockwork Sessions in Glasgow, had a small window of free time during the tracking of a commercial for the famous grouse whiskey.
Wow.
So I like whiskey. There's nothing to do with whiskey, but I do like the famous grouse. Anyway, so I thought, right, okay, how much time have you got? They said, we've got 30 minutes, and that's more than enough to track one song, provided that everything's written. So then I kind of thought, you know what? Let's do it. So me and Steve trekked up to Scotland, to the Royal Concert Hall, and everything was set up. The orchestra hadn't arrived yet, but I had my sort of chance to see the room and the setup and meet the team. And it was very quick. I asked, may I sing? Because I had a film crew. I had a guy come and film the session, and so I said to them, may I sing, actually? Can I be in the video? And they said, right, tell you what, you can do one take, but we don't really have that much time. It's too risky for you to do the whole session. So I'd done a few kind of takes on my own, and then when the orchestra came, I did one take with them. It was very quick. I was very nervous. And, I look back at the video at the time. I'm such a performer, but in the video I do feel like a deer in headlights. But you know what? That was a good reflection, a true reflection of myself on that day at that time. I wasn't trying to be anything else. So it was amazing. So we'd recorded this, a beautiful single, which I released just after the new year. And it's quite pertinent to kind of today's topic of science and looking for a vaccine. I did not write it with COVID in mind at all, but I have received some comments of people saying, hey, it's so relevant really to today's times. So yeah, that's my kind of journey with the song. I'm really proud of it. Moving forward, I still sort of feel I'm not quite sure where it sits in my identity, but I'm very proud of it, and I've got to perform it on the works with Chris Carpio on piano. We just did this like intimate vocal piano arrangement. But what can I say? It's just like a chapter of my life that I'm really grateful that I went for. Yeah.
Okay. And if you were nervous on that song, it's definitely not apparent on the video to me anyway.
People say that, but you know when you watch yourself and you're like, ah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You spot your own errors, don't you, I suppose, on the thing. And so that's been released independently then, sort of self-funded, so it's not on any record label or anything as such?
No. I released it independently via CD Baby, which is like a music distribution channel. I know there's lots of others, and I just kind of thought, well, you know, I didn't have much of a strategy when I released it. It's the first major thing I've released. I think that it's a good window to learning about the sort of business side of things. I still have plans for it, but currently you can listen to it, or you can watch the video on YouTube. It's on Spotify, Deezer. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So does that mean I can play it on this podcast?
Of course.
Brilliant, fantastic.
Like to?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to play this one, and also the Ode to Quarantine as well. Yeah. So if we're clear to do that, fantastic. We'll put them on now.
I know it's in our nature. The mere sound of the beat is true. We'd spiral up like vapor until the clouds rain down on you. I'll feel the static rush around my nucleus, generate so much negative and plus of this universe. If you could turn back time, wouldn't that be great? Recreate your life. Is there anything you change? 'Cause if I turn back now, I'll burn down angels. And if the gods bow down, I'll pray, pray, pray on science. Pray for love. 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 Let's look at the bigger picture, drown out by rain and wind. From that comes life's elixir. You define where you begin. What does the story say? Is nothing set in stone? So illuminate the science of the soul. 'Cause if we burn that cloud, we burn down rainbow. And if the gods bow down, I'll pray, pray, pray on science. Pray for love. 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 I'd rather free fables than shelter my sins. My song's crying so long till I listened. For only the truth knows to walk on water and awaken the signs you pray. Pray, 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 pray on science.
So, just reading your bio the other day, I saw that you'd been working at Disney on Lantau at some point in time.
Indeed.
How did all that go?
So Disney, yeah, okay. So after I'd finished school at YMCA Hong Kong Christian College in Tung Chung, I went there. I then did a course at Hong Kong APA in town in musical theatre, and that was kind of my first love into performing and singing and music, let's say. And after a year's training, upon my graduation show, Ross Jordan, who, may his soul rest in peace, has passed away now, was the casting director at Hong Kong Disneyland.
Okay.
And so... yeah, so Ross invited me to audition for Disney, and I did, and I was up for a role which I got of BB, who is a kind of reporter turned magical character in a stage show called The Golden Mickeys. It was, and I remember receiving the call, and it was the most amazing time of my life, because you go from being a kid to like working, like a working professional. And so I was at Disney for 2 years in the show doing the role. It's a Cantonese speaking role, and yeah, luckily for me, I went to Poyo school as a child, so I could still speak Cantonese, and so I got that role, and I did it for 2 years. It was amazing, but I guess I felt, I was 18, at the time. I was super young, so I guess after that I kind of felt like, right, it was a great experience, and it really uplifted my confidence, but I wanted to try other colours of music in other areas, and that's when I got more into jazz. And I kind of hustled my way to get jazz gigs in hotels in town, not really knowing anything about jazz. But then as my love and my just natural kind of progression in the style and curiosity for the style increased, that's been predominantly my career as a jazz singer. And I performed in Japan, South Korea, in London, Hong Kong, and I'm just really grateful for it. But it's just very different to kind of where I came from, and I think that's the whole thing about me is your identity is something that I think everybody should honor and everybody should protect. But what I've always struggled with is just figuring out what my identity is really. And there's so many different colors of music, and I think you should just try it all, eliminate the avenues, and then you'll naturally kind of find that place. But yeah.
Okay, so and finally, so this Saturday you're going to come down to Vibe and do a tiny desk gig for us.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, no, definitely. It'll be loads of fun. I'm just going to bring my guitar and then maybe a bit of keyboard.
Yeah.
And sing, some soulful tunes, a few originals, a few covers. Nothing as extravagant as an orchestra, but it'll just be me on the guitar, and it'd be great practice more than anything. So thanks for having me. I can't wait.
Just you and the books.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, it'd be great. I mean, we're looking forward to it. We're having to keep it fairly low key. We're not putting out posters everywhere like we normally would do and advertising it, but it's kind of friends and family and people listening to this podcast will obviously gravitate to it.
Oh, I've invited 150 people.
You've done what? Denquar's website is at www.denquar.com. And as I mentioned, she'll be performing a tiny desk gig at Vibe on Saturday at 2 p.m. Thanks for listening to the 5th Vibe Book and Music Shop podcast called VIBErations. I'm Gary Brightman. You get my vibe?
Can you imagine what this old island must have looked like to those Dutch sailors when they first saw it? Fresh green. Like a dream of a new world.
They must have held their breath. Afraid it would disappear before they could touch it.